know about you, but I couldn't really get it off my mind all week. We came upon and lived through the first anniversary of January 6th, 2021, and relived the sadness of that day. And on top of that, we deal with a pandemic that has disrupted the lives of all of us in one way or another. And I see around the globe that everybody feels spiritually empty. We may not have our finger on it, but there's something missing for all of us. So the title of my talk this morning is to transform our lives, to transform our world. It's so interesting how we have begun to divide ourselves. Half the population wants to pretend that nothing happened. No COVID happened and no January 6th happened, while the other half wants to fix it so it never happens again. We're all grieving because we've separated ourselves from one another. And some of that separation was not because we wanted to. Some of it was because of quarantine. But for whatever reason, we lived in separation more and more and more, whether by choice or by quarantine. And so the fears we have, we bottle up inside. We don't usually talk about them to anybody. We have our own version of what's happened. And some people take sides, and some people don't want to take sides. So we're all in a different place. But the point I'm making today is we're in an isolated place. We're in a place where we're not really interacting with each other in the way we were created to do and to be. Because from my perspective as a minister, there's a higher road for us all to take. We have our human world, which we're all human and we honor that. I honor the human in everybody. We have a higher spiritual self that has the ability to rise above all that's happening and to be a part of the entire wholeness of this universe. We certainly had new experiences in the year of 2020 and 2021, ones that in our lifetime we had not had. We had the invasion of the seat of our government, which was something that hasn't happened since the Civil War. We've not experienced that as humans living today. And the pandemic is new for most people. We haven't experienced that in this lifetime. If you're old enough, you might remember the polio scare, and that was awful, and many people were affected by it. But the deaths and the pandemic that everybody went through, the last one, most of us weren't alive. It was the Spanish flu. None of us were alive then. So this has been a new, I won't say norm because it's not normal, but it's been a new experience for all of us the last 2 or 3 years. And we haven't known how to deal with it. And so too often we deal with it with our ego, our humanness, instead of that higher spiritual place where really the peace and the truth and the love come from. And what I know is whether we are, whatever political views we have and choose, we can't blame each other for that. That's totally normal. We've quit allowing each other to be normal somehow and to have our own way of experiencing. And we want to blame everybody, and we want to blame things. When we get into these places where we're divided and we don't want to talk about it, or we do want to talk about it and fight about it, whatever it is, we blame capitalism, we blame racism, we blame some other ism, we blame whatever party that we chose to belong to. But we've got to stop the blame. The blame gets us nowhere. There is no blame to be had. And so what I want to talk about this morning is rising above that humanness in us all, those tendencies in us all, but the ones that divide us, not the ones that bring us into inclusivity. When we stop the blame, we can actually come together and look for the solution. And what I know from being a minister, the solution to the problem is not an ideology. It's something greater. Because what we're finding is ideologies create exclusivity, encouraging us to stay separate from one another and have desires to blame one another, to judge one another. We often feel that it's comforting to us to feel superior to one another. And we feel superior for things like the color of our skin, or the number of degrees we hold, or something that really has nothing to do with who we are as spiritual beings. The highest part of us, the part of us that is the solution to all problems, is our spiritual self. We can see that we're spiritually bereft just to watch the news. We don't want to get much involved with anything because it's so unpleasant. We look around, and as a minister, I get all these statistics. Suicides are on the rise. Drugs are on the rise. Guns are in the hands of everyone, and everyone is angry. The deaths regarding guns is rising. That is not the solution to our problem. And our transformation is coming from us out into the world, instead of having the world transform to meet our needs. But that's not how society is dealing with this. And so we have to pay attention. We have to be mindful of how we want to deal with it, how we want to rise above it, and how we want to transform ourselves in order for us to be able to transform the world. We can't do it in isolation. That isolation that we've had to go through, even though it was necessary, it was awful for just about everyone. And we're not past it yet, and I think that also makes other people, or makes us all, feel really down, because we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet. But the answer is to not get more isolated from one another or more judgmental of one another regarding what I call who we were born to be. We're being judgmental about people who are different than us in many instances. And those people who are different than us were created by a God that created differences. We are all to honor our differences, not to separate ourselves and be judgmental about our differences. God doesn't make mistakes. people of color, people of other political choices. That's not a mistake. We're all created to be different. And we're created to transform ourselves into being honoring of other people's desires and transformations. Now, I know that's not easy, and when I'm preaching to you, I'm preaching to me, because I see myself every day, and I have to really be mindful. But to rise above it, we have to have a society that does not think only of themselves. Right now, we are in a society that thinks only of themselves. There's no judgment about who gets a vaccination or doesn't. But who are we protecting? Are we protecting our doctors and our nurses and our hospitals? Or are we just saying what we want for us? That's not transforming, and it's not transforming the world. And again, I'm not making anybody bad or wrong, and I am not judging anybody. I'm saying there is a higher road to walk. There's a higher way for us to all, none of us feels good about this. And so we're looking for the solution to transform ourselves into a way that we can then transform our world. Nobody's gonna transform our world for us, but us. You know, I did the talk a few weeks ago called No Matter the Question, the Answer is You. No matter what's going on, the answer is us. We think that what many people I don't think the people in this room really do that much, but I see the population think that whatever they want that eases their pain will be okay without looking beyond to their neighbor. You see, we have forgotten who we are, and we have forgotten who we were created to be, because in this universe, we're all part of the whole. We need other humans as much as we need the air we breathe. This is how we were created. We were created to be interdependent on each other, on our universe, on our nature. We're not meant to stand alone and isolate and think only of ourselves. But here's what has happened to our society. We did have to isolate. We had to be cut off in a way. And so many folks took to Facebook and Twitter and television and TikTok, and none of that provides interaction. You're isolated looking at something that's two-dimensional. You're not interacting with it. So that also makes you feel empty. And all of those things I just mentioned, those things that we call social media, we can stay anonymous. People do stay anonymous when they get on those parts of social media, and they can say anything they want or do anything they want. And many people believe it. We quit being discerning about what we're seeing and reading and hearing, and whether it might be the truth or not. We quit fact-checking. We just go on and then form our opinions. That's not who we were created to be. We were created to be a part of the whole. Social media doesn't bring out the best in people. And if you look at it for very long, it's pretty shallow. Not very much depth in any of those social platforms. But we were created to be whole humans. We weren't created to be two-dimensional. We were created to be totally involved in this planet, in each other, in our interacting, in our caring, in our sharing. And yet, that's kind of been taken from us for the last 2 years. And we haven't weathered that storm very well. Because it's a lonely lifestyle. It's happened gradually, so we just sort of got into it without realizing what it is that's uncomfortable. And so many people go from there to anger, and when they get into anger, they blame other people. I want to read a quote to you from Albert Einstein. Now, when did he die? 1945 or something? So this is a very timely quote. And it actually explains in a clear way what I'm here to try and convey today. And in this quote, Albert Einstein says, "A human being is part of the whole, which is called by us the universe." So what he's calling the whole is what he calls the universe. It's a part limited in time or space. He experiences his thoughts and feelings as something separated from, limited by time and space, and separated from the rest. A kind of delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few people near us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. That's something we could recite to ourselves every day. The delusion that we're limited in time and space is a prison. It restricts us from our personal desires. It keeps us in this small little place of only a few people around us. And he says our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. That's who we were created to be. That's the place we want to rise above, the high road we want to take. When I read that quote from him, I just had to sit with it. I had to be with it. And ever since I found it, I've read it every day to remind myself that's who I was created to be. Because I, like I said, I'm not different than anybody else. I too isolated for 2 years. It was easy. We had a reason. We had COVID. I had underlying conditions. I could isolate myself. I loved to read. I could sit in my house and read a book. And I was on board with it. And you know, some of you know me, and I've been in ministry 22 years and never took a sabbatical. We're supposed to take 1 month sabbaticals about every other year, and I never had, so I told myself, okay, I'm taking my sabbatical. But you know what happened? I got depressed too. I forgot what day of the week it was too. I saw myself not being as engaged in what I had committed to do, even in this church. So I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. It's happened to us all. It's happened to us all because we are not meant for this. For this, we were not born. And we are the ones that have to be mindful enough to transform where we are. Not only because when we take ourselves above it, we take each other above it as well. There's nothing that can happen in here that doesn't spread to out here. If you've read the book, Power versus Force, there's a passage in there that every time I read it, I can't even believe it. But he says that every time we change our spiritual understanding and move to a higher level of where we want to be in the world and how we want to show up in the world, and we actually change that to a higher vibration, we change 42,000 people around us. Even if it was 4,200, wouldn't that be amazing? Even if it was 420, wouldn't that be amazing? That just by changing and lifting our own energy and our own spirit and our own desire to make the world a better place, we could change that many people in the world. That's who we were created to be. I was talking about my year and a half or 2 years of isolation and seeing myself get depressed and seeing how I was reacting. We closed this church for 10 months. So Tony and Lynn would help me on Friday. We would come over to an empty room, we would do a service, and we would post it on YouTube. And I learned that I am not good at all talking to an empty room. It was very bad for me, and I don't think it helped the church either, really. And it was just another way that I got in touch with the fact that we can't stand alone. We need each other. We need each other's energy. We need each other's touch. And when we don't get it, things happen to our psyche. And so we have to become more mindful and more careful. And that's what I've been trying to do for myself, is I can't, I try not to teach any of you to do something I won't do myself. But I did watch myself during that 10 months. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And I had wonderful support from Tommy. He would come up here, he would put flowers everywhere, he would video, he would take it home, he would put it on, Lynn would create music. I mean, I had all the support I could ever need or want from anyone. And it was empty. And I learned from that. This is what we're all wrestling with in one way or another, I think. In fact, history is already recording the difficulties that we humans have experienced since we can't interact with our friends any longer, and our neighbors, and our fellow students, and our church, and our community, and our co-workers. It's already been recorded how much more drinking has happened, and how much more depression has happened, and how many children dropped out of college and school because they couldn't deal with having no human person to interact with and to be taking their classes on Zoom. It's just an indicator of what happens when we have to isolate. It's so not who we were created to be. one thing I know and one thing I will tell you is I need your energy. I know that. I need your energy. I will do my best to give it back, but I need it. I can't. I don't do well without interaction. They're saying that children should go to school now no matter what, because they saw what it did to children's psyches when they were not allowed to go to school. So we're learning things about ourselves, and mostly what we're learning is we need each other. We're created to need each other, to show up with love and caring and not judgment and prejudice. We need each other. We were created to interact and support one another. The divisiveness and the anger and intolerance and the judgmental air that we've had to live with has been very, very destructive to our society. And if you notice, it didn't take that long to do it. And the more angry we get, and the more depressed we get, the more vulnerable we become to letting other people influence us in negative ways. And that too is what has happened to us. So we can't blame or point fingers, because for every finger that points, four are pointing back at us. We have to be, as Gandhi said, the peace we wish to see. We have to create that which we would like to see happen in our world. We can't wait for somebody else to do it. We were put on this earth to create a world that works for everyone. The entire universe created to be a world that works for all of nature, all the animals, all the oceans, all the forests, all the trees. We're here not to be isolated or stand alone. We're here to interact with all of nature and create a world with other humans and all other parts of our natural world, to create a world that works for everyone. You know the old saying, united we stand, divided we fall. And there are those right now that would have us be divided. Because if we can be divided and we can fall, we're easily taken over. It's happened all over the world in our history. We cannot let that happen. We must start with ourselves. We must turn away from anything that is not of love and peace and joy and truth. We can't look at our neighbors as scary just because they look different than we do. They were created by a creator to intentionally make them be different. We are to honor that. We are not to doubt the creation of the world we live in. One of the ways, I heard someone this week on TV say, to be a good neighbor. What kind of a neighbor would I be? I would be a neighbor that brings out the best in other people. And I can't do that without bringing out the best in myself. You ever think about the word, you know I'm a lexicon, the word universe. U-N-I means one. Verse means song. We were all created to be a part of this universe, which is to sing one song. How amazing is that? We're all created to be part of the whole and to sing that song. And we bloom and we grow right where we are created. We bloom and grow right where we're created. We give each other a helping hand, a pat on the back. We see what we can do. We don't point fingers at anybody. We just say, I'm here to transform me. So I'm going to end this talk today with a daily word. The daily word is for the 16th of January, which is next Sunday. But the daily word is exactly about what I'm talking about today. The title of that daily word is Rise. The affirmation for that daily word is, I rise in consciousness to help create a world that works for all. Throughout time, there have been people who led lives that changed the world forever. Their words and deeds provided hope and inspiration for those who would carry forth their legacies of love, growth, and evolution long after they left this life. Their most powerful contribution, however, was their ability to inspire others to express their own divine purpose. I would like you all to express your own divine purpose and influence others to do the same. As more and more people reach their highest potential, the whole of humanity ascends. And that's what I was saying. David Hawkins said, if I reach a higher place in my humanity and in my spirituality, I influence others to do the same. And it's energetically. It's not like I've got to have a soapbox to get on. It's that my energy is different. And so you feel that different energy. You feel that higher energy. It just happens. You don't have to be even worrying about whether it's happening. It happens. We didn't come here to hold anybody back. We came here to contribute our love and our energy. We're here to grow and evolve along with this universe. And as I said, we are here to bloom where we've been planted, to honor who we are, to honor who others have been created to be, and make sure we're giving other people a helping hand when we need it. Giving each other kudos and pats on the back, just to feel that energy. Because when I'm transformed, it's amazing how other people around me pick it up. So, as we rise and as we're grateful to contribute all we can to the growth and the development and the evolution of mankind, we not only have transformed ourselves, we have transformed our world. So let's take that now into a moment of reflection and meditation. If you're comfortable, lay things aside, and if you're comfortable, you might want to close your eyes as we move into a place of just coming together, thinking about what we heard today, and how we might honor not only our own highest potential, but the highest potential of the whole of humanity. We each have a role to play. And we do it just by being who we were created to be. No effort, no going out for a new degree or anything like that. Just being who we were created to be. Being that love and that joy and that peace, that truth, that integrity. That's who we were created to be. We bring that to the table, everybody wins. Everybody's stronger. So as we go through this week, this year, these next few months, just being mindful, who do I show up as today? How can I show up with love and support and kindness? How can I evolve and grow? We need look no further for our divine purpose than just to be the love we were created to be. So we take that out into this day and this week and this year. As we change our being a good neighbor, change our block, change our subdivision, change our city, our county, reach out. How can we do that? We do it just by knowing who we were created to be and living from that. And we give thanks for who we are, who we show up as, the gifts we've been given, the one song that we all have been given to sing. And we live from a place of gratitude in our hearts, because this is who we are. Because it's already in us, waiting to come out moment to moment, day to day. So we say, thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.